35 News.
Thank you everybody so much for being here. Great to see such a nice crowd this evening. You guys will appreciate this. I pulled up this morning and the sun was shining bright and it was raining all at the same time. So only in Florida can that happen. So I'm glad everybody made it here safely. Obviously, this is a very exciting night. We want to wish a big thank you tonight to Rick Singh and the folks at the Orange County Property Appraiser's Office for this opportunity for us all to get together. Right now, I am delighted to bring to the stage one of Florida's dynamic developers. This gentleman has been at the helm of large construction projects here in Central Florida and many other parts of the country. He has built and managed several multi-family communities and has served as chairman of CED Construction. He's also a man of many philanthropic interests. He's donated millions of dollars to make Central Florida a better place for all of us. So ladies and gentlemen, if you would please give a warm welcome right now to Allen Ginsberg, chairman of the AEG Group and founder of CED Companies. Allen?
When I was having lunch with Rick a while ago, he asked if I would introduce him for tonight's spectacle. I told him I'd be very pleased to do so, and it would in fact be my honor. Rick is one of the hardest working guys that I've ever met. Not a lot of us know a lot about Rick, so I thought I'd take just a couple minutes in his introduction to tell you a little bit about him. He is our Orange County Property Appraiser, newly elected. He brings a depth of knowledge to the office. He is a state certified residential appraiser. Rick loves Orlando, as many of us do. He's active in the community. Rick holds lots of memberships, some of which are serving on the board of the American Lung Association, and Shares International of Florida Hospital Foundation. He's a member of the Orlando Regional Realtors Association, the International Association of Assessing Officers, and he serves as an executive in an advisory role for the nonprofit Florida Diversity Incorporated. I would like you all to join me with a warm welcome and applause for a property assessor. Welcome, Rick Singh.
Put your hands together for Allen Ginsberg, a class act indeed. So right off the bat, I got to correct Allen. I'm not just a property assessor, I'm your property assessor. I want to begin tonight by thanking Allen for that wonderful introduction. I'm not sure if I even recognize the guy he introduced. But Allen, thank you so much. Those words were very kind. And I'd like to express sincere gratitude to all of you for responding to the invite of this wonderful event and for coming out tonight and showing your love and support for the Property Appraiser's Office and for this wonderful panel that we'll present to you. So hearty thank you to all of you. And to Amy Kofel, our moderator, she's just kicked the program off with a tremendous start. Amy, thank you so much. So without nothing further to do, let's begin.
Right now, breaking news here, stocks all around the world are tanking because of the crisis on Wall Street.
On the markets today. At one point, the market fell as if down a well.
From the banks to the financials to you name it. The Dow Jones Industrial Average now
Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5% down in these markets. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate.
Financial assets related to home mortgages have lost value during the housing decline, and the banks holding these assets have restricted credit.
House after house, street after street.
As a result, our entire economy is in danger.
And half of all sales are homes in distress.
So the video you just saw gives us a snapshot as to the state of real estate in Orange County. And from all indications, the state of real estate is quite simply growth. For the first time in 5 years, every municipality in Orange County saw an increase in total revenue. Growth is related to 6 key indicators. Growth is fueled by capital markets, insightful public policy. That is followed by entrepreneurs like Mr. Ginsburg and many of our panelists, businesses going into the marketplace and creating value. Your property appraiser captures that value through the appraisal process by utilizing the sales comparison, income and cost approach to value. Then taxes is distributed to the revenues through local jurisdiction. The jurisdictions provide public service for all of us to benefit as citizens. And then we have the opportunity to sustain growth by supporting these new ventures. This growth is part of a market rebound. Orange County saw a 9% increase in market value, which takes our total tax roll to $125 billion. Basically, my friends, we overheated between 2005 and 2008. We overcorrected back in 2009 and 2010. And based on the trend line, we still have not reached a normal valuation point. A major factor for increased value is market value, of course, is the economy. Remember, capital market, public policy, consumer desires are all very important rules. But equally important is having a property appraiser who consistently improve oversight, improve technology, and is tough on fraud. And as Allen Ginsberg said, since taking office, I've returned $68.5 million back on the tax roll by enforcing compliance. That's $68.5 million you and I don't have to account for. So let's talk about new construction. That's a big part of this growth. New construction adds up to nearly $1.5 billion in Orange County. Currently, about 65% of new construction, or $1 billion, is accounted for in the residential sector of our community. Another 35% is, of course, in the commercial sector. To put this into perspective, this equates to $4.4 million of new construction every day right here in Orange County. Let me repeat that. $4.4 billion of new construction every day right here in Orange County. Okay, while we are seeing new construction and the return of cranes in the skyline, we've not even reached the pre-2005 levels. But if this year is any indication, we should be seeing anywhere between $1.5 and $2 billion in new construction in 2014. Some of the areas where new construction is strongest includes Horizon West, Lake Nona, Winter Garden, and of course, Winter Park. On the commercial sides, apartments are leading the pack, my friends. Values an apartment, $310 million. 15 projects, over 2,800 units, right here in Orange County. In the construction pipeline, we have 50 residential developments on its way. 3,800 homes ready to be built, and 25 major commercial developments, mainly in Lake Nona, and of course, Horizons West. Okay, so what about single-family home sales? Well, let's look at single-family home sales. The good news is the volume is turned up to a tune of 48% increase in sales from 2012 to 2013. Single-family homes in Orange County went from $1.9 billion in 2012 to, in 2013, $2.8 billion. That's a 48% increase, my friends. That means we have some happy realtors in the room. Is that right? Well, if you're a happy realtor and you're in this room, clap your hand, because sales commissions have gone from $115 million to $170 million. On the flip side, there are foreclosures, the black sheep of the family that no one wants to talk about. But even here, the picture is not as bad as it's indicating. Remember, just because a property gets filed as a foreclosure with the clerk of court doesn't necessarily mean it actually becomes a foreclosure. For our market, a normal sense of foreclosure rate is approximately 2,000. In a recession environment, we have seen up to 12,000 foreclosures. Today, our market is seeing approximately 5,000 foreclosures. So while we're not quite out of the woods yet, it is nowhere close to 2008 and 2010. We've seen litigation, we've seen negotiations, and we've even seen sales on the courthouse steps. So things are still to be flushed out with regards to foreclosure. Some of our growth also relates to location. As many of you are quite aware, Orlando is unique in so many ways. That's why we have lots of foreign investment in Orange County. The taxable value of foreign investment is represented by our friends from Canada, $624 million. Our friends from the United Kingdom, $227 million. Brazil, $122 million. Venezuela and Ireland accounts for the additional $100 million. Let's move to personal tangible property tax, or TPP. What is TPP, you ask? Quite simply, it's business assets. And we have approximately added $1.1 billion in new TPP investments right here in Orange County. Most of it comes from the tourism and utilities sector. Walt Disney World alone, $163 million in tangible personal property. That includes rides and other attractions. Universal Studios has added a Transformer ride many of you are familiar with, $50 million, tangible personal property. Duke Energy comes in with $65 million, and the list is rounded off with AT&T and Harvest Power. We saw 5,200 new business accounts in Orange County last year. So let's talk about population, school, and transportation, because they all are affected by growth. Orange County has seen 6.9% increase in population. That has outpaced the state of Florida and the United States of America by almost 2-to-1. Our schools have seen a steady increase in students. 190 students have registered in Orange County Public School. And for transportation, I saw many of you applauding during the Sunrail ad, but here's what we are doing with the Sunrail. We are tracking the value of property with regards to the Sunrail station. This is an example of the Maitland stop. So what we have done is measure property value with regards to a half a mile and 1 mile in proximity to this stop. We've taken a very meticulous inventory of the assets to include housing, vacant commercial land, major roads, and points of interest. We were also studying the station's impact on the top 10 commercial properties within a half a mile, and the total businesses within a half a mile of all of our Sunrail stops. Of course, we can never talk about growth in Orange County without tourism. We are the #1 vacation destination of the world, and our friends that visit Orlando will never let us forget that. They'll remind us that we have 60 million tourists last year, my friends, close to 60 million tourists. All of those people need somewhere to sleep, right? So we're seeing more hotel revenue, which have translated into higher valuation. In 2013, hotel revenues topped $2.8 billion. Tourists matters not only to hotels, but also to timeshare. Orange County is ground zero for valuation of timeshare. 68 timeshare resorts, 14,000 timeshare units sold on a weekly basis. That's $6.3 billion of valuation of timeshare right here in Orange County. Again, we can't come to Central Florida and not talk about theme parks. They actually account for nearly $8 billion of our $125 billion in market value. Now, all of this boils down to one thing, and that is, of course, property taxes. So let's talk about property taxes. If we break down the growth of property tax revenue, we can see Winter Garden leads the list. Again, for the first time since 2009, Every municipality in Orange County saw some type of growth, even if it's small. So take a moment and try to find your municipality if you would. Where does the lion's share of property tax revenue go? $490 million in property tax fund schools statewide. $397 million goes to the Orange County government. $311 million goes to the Orange County public schools system. So what's next in Orange County? We see residential growth all around Orange County. New rides. Our theme parks have to keep reinventing themselves to stay relevant. New hotels and timeshare to keep up with the demand. New business assets or TPP. We must see an infill in the downtown apartments and, of course, an explosion at Flamingo Crossing in West Disney area, and East Orange County is growing rapidly. So to summarize, the market is rebounding. Quite simply, we soared a little too fast, we blew a gasket, we overcompensate to correct, we ended up in a tailspin, and now we're getting back to a sense of normalcy. New construction is up, but there's still room for improvement. As existing home sales are seeing a healthy growth. Businesses are investing in new assets. Remember, retail follows rooftops. Orange County population will continue to outpace the state of Florida and even the nation. Jurisdictions, our municipalities are experiencing new revenue growth. So you ask me, what is the state of real estate? I tell you, the state of real estate is unbelievable. With this, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you again. As I corrected Alan, I'm not just the property appraiser, I am your property appraiser. So at this time, I'd like to turn the wheel back over to Amy to come forward and take the wheel and, of course, continue with our panel discussion. Thank you so much.
All right, that was an awesome presentation. Really good job. Thank you so much, Rick, for that. It is time now to introduce our panelists for the evening. We've got some great panelists. I'm going to introduce them one by one. And gentlemen and ladies, if you would please just come on up when your name is called and take your place here at the panel. We want to start with A. Wayne Rich, Esquire of Council Broad and Castle. Our next panelist is Charles Woodall. He's president of Unicorp National Developments Incorporated. Charles. Our next panelist is Dana Kilborn, president and CEO, Florida Bank of Commerce. Dana, come on up. Next we have Gary Manfredi, managing director of Stern Aggie Mortgage. Next, we have Mark P. Wiley, President and CEO, Associated Builders and Contractors Incorporated, the Central Florida chapter. Then we have Zola Saranzes, President, Orlando Regional Realtor Association. Zola, come on up. We got a lot of realtors in here. And of course, we have property appraiser Rick Singh. He's also going to be joining our panel tonight. Rick? Okay, so our first question for the panel tonight. In the property appraiser's presentation that you just saw with Rick, we saw nearly a 10% growth across the board in market value. That's the highest that we've seen since 2009. So we're going to open the panel discussion with a very general question. What do you think is driving the growth? Who would like to start on that? What do you think is driving the growth right now here in Central Florida?
I think what's driving the growth in Central Florida is we have a great place to live. We have a great tourism market, obviously. The weather's fabulous. And we've got, gosh, the Performing Arts Center that's coming here. I was just with some people talking about that the other day. The Performing Arts Center is probably one of the nicest, if not the nicest in the world. We've now got one of the best arenas in the country, if not the best arena in the country. We've now got soccer here. We've got great restaurants. We've got everything coming here to make Central Florida a first-class place to live, go out to shows, great entertainment. We've got everything going on here, and it's a wonderful market. We're building all over. We got the first 2 Trader Joe's coming here. We have a little plug. We're opening Trader Joe's next Friday in Winter Park. And things like the wheel that we're building and all the additions that Universal Studios and Disney are doing continue to attract people to come visit our market. And then once they come visit, they realize this is a great place and a lot of people move here. So we're excited to do development here, and we've got a lot going on and a lot more coming up.
Dana, I saw you had a finger up, so we'll let Dana go, and then we'll go to Zola. Go ahead, Dana.
I would say that overall, I think what's driving growth in much of Florida is most certainly sort of investor fatigue. People are tired of sitting on the sidelines, and they're ready to put their money back to work. I think that's a big part of it. I think the interest rate environment is clearly beneficial, and it looks like that low rate environment is here to stay for a little while longer, so that has certainly helped. I think that Orlando certainly, and Orange County, has certainly outperformed much of the state in that growth, and I would say it's all the things that Chuck mentioned.
Zola.
Great, thank you. I do believe it has to do with real estate as well, just a little bit. But the growth is absolutely, as Dana was mentioning, it has to do with the low interest rate, since we have seen interest rates under 4% just right before this year started. So that was a great growth, as well as the affordable pricing on the homes. That also brings the market and the growth in the economy. And of course, the pent-up demand for the people who are trying to, the retiring baby boomers, as well as the international real estate purchasers are driving the market.
Wayne, how about you?
Well, by way of history, my grandfather came to Orlando in 1922. And at that time, Florida was experiencing a land boom. And he said at that time, and most prophetically, that as long as that sun is shining, people are going to come to Florida. And so far, as I can tell, he's been right. And I would also suggest to you that the population of Orange County has pretty much exploded. I went back and did a little research just for fun because I thought people would be interested in this. In 1910, that's a little over 100 years ago, Orange County had 19,000 people. Today, 100 years later, we have 1,145,000 people. So if you believe in the trend lines that Rick showed up on the screen, they're coming, they've been coming, and I do believe they're still going to come.
Mark?
Thank you. I think it's also being driven by profit. I mean, we have an opportunity in Central Florida in terms of cost of real estate, cost of construction, especially on the commercial side, that investments are going to pay off here, whether it's apartments or whether it's hotels or theme parks. The folks are coming to Orlando from around the world, and there's an opportunity to make money in this market. We're a right-to-work state. Competition is very intense here still, so it's a good place to develop.
All right, Gary.
I would have to support what Wayne said as a local boy who went away for about 10 years and lived in Chicago and has moved back. I think the weather is a big part of what's driving the growth. And from my perspective with young children, I think the school system really played a part in that.
What is the impact of international buyers on both residential and the commercial markets? I thought that, Rick, your graphic that you put up was fascinating. I really did not realize that Canadians #1 here in Central Florida.
Yeah, so our friends from the north contribute significantly, but we've got my good friend Alejandro Pizzini in the audience. He's a businessman from Brazil. Alejandro, excuse me for picking on you, but Alejandro has come here, he's established a business, he's brought his friends, they're investing, but guess what? They just broke ground on a bank yesterday, a Brazilian bank yesterday, right here in Central Florida. So folks are not, that's right, that deserves an applause. Yeah. My point here is we are becoming a cosmopolitan society. We're becoming more like the bigger city with the items like Chuck mentioned, the Performing Arts Center, state-of-the-art Performing Arts Center. That's attracting the big ticket items, will attract the big ticket folks. So our foreign investors are coming, they're coming in droves, and they're investing.
Zola, obviously you were actually born in Hungary and have made the United States home, but talk a little bit about your thoughts on this.
Sure, thank you. Just let me give you some numbers. The numbers are from the National Association of Realtors. So the latest data shows as residential sales in the past year, in 2013, it was close to $1.1 trillion, okay, for residential sales. Now out of that is $68 billion were from foreign nationals, okay? That's national stat. So in our state of Florida, we are actually representing 6.8 billion out of that, and trickle this down to our beautiful Central Florida. It's actually 14% of that $6.8 billion has been spent by foreign nationals purchasing second homes or vacation homes, businesses, and as well as lands. And one single reason why they're purchasing is just the affordability. It's just very affordable for people coming from, even from our friend, as Rick was mentioning, from Canada, where an average property price is around $350,000. And when we are looking at our home prices here, the average median price is $165,000 as of last month. Is just very attractive for people to come and even buy a vacation home or an investment home, or even actually move their businesses to our areas.
Congress always introducing new legislation, as we know. They do actually do some stuff, right? We know that. What does the new Dodd-Frank regulation mean, specifically as it relates to the qualified mortgage rule or the ability to repay rule? Many people sort of use those interchangeably. The Dodd-Frank regulation, what are your thoughts on that? Anyone want to begin?
Come on, Dana, that's the right softball for you.
It is. I will first let Gary. I will follow up to what Gary can't do, I'll do. How's that?
I'll just start by saying they are different rules. They went into effect January 10th, and they were significant for mortgage originators. I don't think they've made a lot of difference on the availability of credit, but what they've done is they've made the process, the loan manufacturing process, much more complicated and regulated. So I think from that perspective, a lot of the weight has been put on originators. It's raised the cost of compliance. But from the availability of credit perspective, it's been marginal.
Dana?
The only thing that I would add is the difficulty that providers have of navigating through the complexity of the new regulations has, in my view, impacted availability of credit because the participants in the market have gone away, because the cost of doing that business is deemed to be too high. And I think that's the risk in this legislation. I think the intent was probably sound, but the unintended consequence of all of the regulation and the burden and the unknown of the putbacks has caused a lot of players to leave the market.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Dodd-Frank overreacting and what has happened in the appraisal industry. I'll give you an example. I've got a mentor who's an appraiser, has been in the industry for 40-something years. He's been through all different type of economies. When Dodd-Frank came into place, he took his license down to the Department of Revenue and handed it to them and said, I'm out of this business because of the regulation. So here is what has happened. The appraiser traditionally will make $300, $350 on a residential transaction. What Dodd-Frank did was essentially created a third party who was a management company to manage the appraisal process. The management company now was taking 50% of my friend's fee. In addition to that, giving him more work. You know, he went to St. Cloud High School, but that didn't make him, you know, it just didn't work for him. It just wasn't good common sense. So my point here is Dodd-Frank, it was an overreaction and really put appraisers out of business. An entire industry went out of business. If you check the stats for the Department of Business and Professional Regulations, we have a deficiency in state-certified and qualified appraisers in the state of Florida as a result of Dodd-Frank.
All right, we're going to move on to infrastructure and talk a little bit about transportation. Obviously, that has changed tremendously just over the last month here in Central Florida. What kind of changes are we going to need here in Orange County and Central Florida to make our transportation modes better, more efficient, to capture more of an audience. Obviously, Sunrail has made a huge impact just in the short time that it has been running. What are your thoughts on transportation? Does anybody want to start on this one? Go ahead, Wayne.
Well, this is an area that we could spend a lot of time on for this discussion. When you stop to think back to what I just said earlier about the current size of the population in Orange County, it's expected to double by 2050. And if you can imagine the road network that we have right presently, something's going to have to give. And there are some things that work. Sunrail is certainly a great start, but we probably need to double the size of our transit system, our bus system, to serve more people. We have some great leadership in the community that's working in that regard. But adding capacity to our system is going to be absolutely crucial. The kickoff of the ultimate I-4, which will start happening hopefully the end of this year, the first part of next year, is a massive undertaking, $2.3 billion. It's going to cause a lot of headache and grief because of the considerable disruption it's going to make, but once it's done, it's going to be a terrific system. The managed lane projects that have been completed in South Florida have been a huge success. And all that really does is add capacity to an already existing system. But where is the Google car going to fit into this? The expansion of the airport and the bringing of all aboard Florida, assuming it moves forward from Miami into the airport, that's going to have a very significant impact.
We have 55 to 60 million people a year visiting Orlando. You're talking about 5 or 6 million people a month coming into this community, a community of 1.2, 1.3 million people. So we have to find a way to move those folks as much, if not more so, than the residents of this community. And I think the maglev idea or light rail that will take the visitors from the airport's getting 35 or 40 million passengers coming through there. So again, anything that we can do in terms of mass transportation that help get those folks off our highways and onto either buses or trains or some other way to get them to their parks and wherever they're going in town, whether it's the convention center or the hotels, is going to be a big asset for this community. And I think we're moving in that direction.
My biggest concern now is that I-4 is an absolute horrid mess right now. So during this 7 years, it is going to be total gridlock. And I don't think everybody realizes how bad that's going to be because there's very minimal alternative ways to get around here right now. So anybody who has to commute up and down I-4, I'm already thinking for the next 7 years, I'm going to avoid I-4. That work is going to start soon, and they are going to take bridges down. They're doing new ramps, new clover leafs, widening of the road, adding a toll lane through the center. It's major, major construction.
You can't control the market. You can't control who's going to buy here, and the market will always correct itself. But what do we do about affordable housing and making sure that people that live in Central Florida can afford to buy real estate here?
What we don't want is to be sympathetic to a buyer and get that buyer into a house and that buyer can't afford the house. That's how we got into the mess initially. And I was in the industry, I was deep in the trench. And traditionally what you would have is a buyer coming to my office and say, hey, I want to buy a home. You would qualify this buyer and tell the buyer you can't qualify, you just don't have the income, job situation, or whatever. That buyer would go down the road and come back to me and say, guess what, I just bought a house. Somebody financed that buyer. He got financed. Those buyers were the first to come back to me and say, hey, I just lost my house. So we don't want to have that cycle of buyers that are not responsible. So I think education is so important for our first-time home buyers. As a matter of fact, I'm going to toot my own horn here, we're actually starting a program at the Property Appraiser's office to educate first-time home buyers, how to buy a home, what not to do, get a realtor, work with people that are licensed. These are things that are so important. So I think education plays a very important part here.
What are the other reasons for Orlando families to step up and sell their home and buy their next home within the Central Florida area?
Yeah, we are entering in the home building business. We have a lot of residential lots, but we're not seeing really a rise in interest rates. Interest rates are staying pretty steady right now, but we are seeing a rise in home values. So people who are currently in their homes have an opportunity to sell their houses at this point, recover the value that they'd lost previously. And naturally, with a growing economy, people's incomes grow, and then they move up to the next level home. We're seeing all sorts of different, even in our apartments that we're building right now, we're seeing very high income level people take the apartments because some of the stress that you talked about in home ownership, and it's easier not to have to deal with some of those headaches. But I think in any flourishing economy, people will always graduate up to the next home level as the market improves. And I think we're seeing that now. Central Florida is a robust economy right now. We've done business all over the country, and we've developed in various places, Virginia, New York, Texas, and we own properties all over. And we are in such a good market in Central Florida. And I just can't tell you how good it is that homes are selling very quickly. Our commercial space, we own 80 different commercial properties right now. Most of them are 100% leased. And all that is telling us is that the market is filling up, and the more people that are moving here are creating more demand for the new houses, and which is creating more demand. Somebody said earlier, retail space follows it, which is true. The more houses we see built, the more need for retail space. And we're looking at lots of projects right now, building new retail space around these, and a lot of infill projects.
I do believe we are in a strong market in Central Florida. We might be the first one who went down in 2008, but we are also the first one who is coming back up. So that's what I believe. And Neil, for your answer, it does have to do a lot with the rising home prices, and as we mentioned before earlier, it's $165,000 now, the median home price. So most of the people were just waiting to build back some of the equity so they can actually exit out of their homes and become, like, as we call it in the industry, the move-up purchasers, so they can actually look into and move up to their next purchases, as well as it has to do, I think, with the economy as well. The outlook for the consumers are very positive for the short-term economy outlook, so people are very confident, and that's why they're making those moves.
What programs in terms of real estate exist and are in the works to attract and retain young professionals in Central Florida?
Right now is a great time for people to get in the business, whether it's residential or commercial. The market's booming. If you're willing to get out and work hard and work hard and work hard, you're going to do well in the market. So definitely look at the commercial, look at residential. There's a lot of opportunities in commercial. The Central Florida's economy is going to continue to grow, and commercial real estate is going to continue to expand.
There is right now a shortage in the trades, and there's going to continue to be a shortage in the trades. So if you know young people that have a aptitude with working with their hands, whether it's being an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, encourage them to check out the opportunities in Central Florida for learning those trades and getting into this business, because this is going to be a ground floor opportunity for a lot of them. We lost over half of the job opportunities in the construction industry, residential and commercial, from 2006 to 2010. We've been around on the bottom since 2010. Just last year, we experienced a 10% increase in jobs. And Dr. Snaith at the University of Central Florida estimates that there's going to be a 10% increase for the next 3 years. So there's going to be a continued demand for them. Unfortunately, those folks are not sitting on the sidelines waiting to be called back. We're going to have to grow them out of this community. So if you know folks that could be college graduates, could be going to the community colleges, or coming out of high school that have an aptitude to working with their hands and are interested in working outdoors in many cases, or working with equipment, encourage them to take a look at opportunities in the construction industry, because if we don't encourage them to be in it, you haven't seen the top of the cost of construction yet, because it will get very expensive.
All right, so I'd like to thank each and every one of you for attending, and this dynamite group of folks here, all industry experts, as you can attest. They're all industry experts that's done a tremendous job, a tremendous service to us today. So let's give them all a nice round of applause. All right, so thank you so much. My name is Rick Singh. I'm your property appraiser. Thank you again. This was a historical event. For the first time in the state of Florida, State of Real Estate was presented right here in Orange County. Thank you. I'll see you next year.